Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. One of the clearest signals that India is on track is if the Western media starts complaining. And the most recent example of that is a piece in The Economist dated yesterday, which bitterly complains about the road that India is on. The Economist, which continuously is known to self-correct its own doomsday prophecies on India because it gets them completely wrong, complains this time that Prime Minister Narendra Modi is not compromising enough, that he should be compromising. But instead of compromising, which The Economist wants, Prime Minister Narendra Modi remains doubly committed, in their own words, to his pledge to turn India into a developed nation by 2047. It also goes on to say that the BJP is campaigning for recent upcoming elections on what it calls a familiar theme of development and nationalism. What's wrong with that? Anyway, look deep and you find in that whine, that sad and pathetic whine of The Economist, a realization that the West, so used to looking down at India, has lost the race to India. No wonder The Economist is being a crybaby, a terrible crybaby, utterly devastating, that we can afford to approve infrastructure projects worth $39 billion in one go coolly, while maintaining an 8.2% unbelievable year-on-year growth. The British, the Americans, they can't believe what's happening in India. In fact, in the UK nowadays, they celebrate if they even reach 1% growth. Let me tell you a few things which the West is talking about its own situation. The CEO of JP Morgan warns the US of an economic fate worse than recession. He says the worst outcome is stagflation. And by the way, I wouldn't take it off the table. That's September 14th, 2024. That's what you should be worried about, Economist. A US-based economist has also warned of an impending stock market crash that will be worse than the 2008 financial crisis. That's what you should be worried about. And as far as the UK is concerned, it's almost heading into recession. Ladies and gentlemen, their infrastructure is collapsing in the West. Their airports are broken. They don't have the money to even reconstruct broken parts. Their trains hardly run because their rail unions are not paid enough to balance their cost of living. They don't even have enough money to take care of their elderly in government hospitals. No wonder they are crying hoarse about why the World Bank has further increased India's growth forecast. And so has the IMF, by the way, by 20 basis points. Viewers, the simple word we must use is the word jealousy. The jealousy of the West. They cannot afford to fund the Ukraine war. The Saudis are no longer with them. Their social fabric is breaking apart between the wokes and the ultra-libs and the extreme right. And here we are speaking about the real possibility of further cutting our fuel prices down while achieving 8% plus growth. Viewers, economically speaking, we are in an oasis as the rest of the world heads into the turbulence of a near recessionary cycle. And that is why tonight's episode of The Nation Wants to Know, which I've integrated into the format of the evening debate tonight, is very significant because tonight I feature a chat I've just had and recorded about a couple of hours back with the Finance Minister of India, where she talks about where she sees us 100 days into the Modi government. Ladies and gentlemen, I've personally been fairly critical of the budget this year. I felt much more needed to be done for the middle class. I talked to Nirmala Sitharaman about that as well. But most importantly, you'll get a complete picture of where we are placed, where we will go, and where we are placed vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So that's my first feature to you tonight at 8 p.m. At 8 p.m. I get you that super exclusive interview with the Finance Minister of India, Nirmala Sitharaman. I hope you enjoy that. At 9 o'clock tonight, we will take a very clear picture from geopolitics to economy to what it matters to you on the 100-day report card of Modi 3.0 this September the 17th. And here are the headlines this Tuesday evening on the Debate Tonight.
भारत की विदेश नीति में मेरे जैसे कई लोगों को रीढ़ की हड्डी दिखाई नहीं पड़ती थी। अब भारत की विदेश नीति में रीढ़ की हड्डी दिखाई पड़ती है।
On the 100th day of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term as Prime Minister, Union Home Minister Amit Shah has declared that India is experiencing unprecedented political stability and a robust foreign policy for the first time in 6 decades.
So in order to undermine this singular recognition by the people of India, this narrative about, oh, this is an alliance, it's unstable, yes, it is not showing leadership and all that, is just a hollow narrative.
Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman speaks to Republic, reflects on the first 100 days of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's third term in office. She says that the Modi government is under no pressure at all of coalition politics and that the Congress should not juxtapose their coalition era logic on the Modi government. Nirmala Sitharaman also breaks down the middle class question, says that the Modi government's assessment is based on attempts to provide something fruitful to the middle class. The finance minister highlights the big steps taken to boost MSMEs and the housing sector. And Atishi is to be the next chief minister of Delhi. She gets unanimous support of all the AAP MLAs. Atishi thanks Big Brother and Guru Arvind Kejriwal and expresses sorrow over his resignation. And ladies and gentlemen, I begin tonight with an extensive interview with Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. The interview spans multiple areas. One, where we stand right now, 100 days into the third term of the Modi government. I then go on to ask questions about whether the middle class got enough, whether they can expect some concessions in the future. Then we look at the macro situation. I delve into politics as well. And I ask for her sense of the opposition's narrative and whether coalition politics is having any impact or becoming a pressure point in the decision making for Modi 3.0. Finally, we close by asking her about the global scenario as near recessionary headwinds are blowing globally, where she sees India placed in the upcoming future. This is a very interesting conversation if you're keen to get at least an insider's view of how the government is moving in terms of continuity of economic policy. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, on this episode of The Nation Wants to Know, I have with me one of the senior-most members of the Modi cabinet. And we've been trying to look at what the government has achieved in its first 100 days. I'm delighted to have with us Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji. Nirmala ji, thank you very much. It's it's a
pleasure to be in your channel, Arnab.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Always a pleasure to have you as well. How have the first 100 days been? And if I can couch that question in terms of the fact that there are always people who look at it in terms of a narrative. They expect these 100 days to be different from what they would have been had the BJP had an absolute majority. So has your experience been slightly different? Have you had to be more cautious? How are the numbers played out in your the way you're moving things forward?
We've been the same. Prime Minister Modi has been the same in the sense his motivation level and his keenness to do things so that there are transformational changes that can happen for India remains the same. So I'm sorry, the opposition and the narrative builders are going to have to be disappointed. the dedication that Prime Minister Modi shows when he is leading the country is not in any way dissuaded by a reduction in the number. Don't miss the point that all of us are encouraged by the fact that under his leadership, his government is formed for the third time consecutively. Since after Prime Minister Nehru's time, there's not been one government which has come to power for the third time consecutively. So in order to undermine this singular recognition by the people of India, this narrative about, oh, this is an alliance, it's unstable, yes, it is not showing leadership and all that, is just a hollow narrative, which is thrown to confuse the people who, on the contrary, are saying the same dedication with which Prime Minister Modi is setting about his work. The 100 days have been keeping all of us on our toes, and that is why the numbers will speak for themselves.
Ms. Sitharaman, in fact, to an extent, I would agree with you that when we were analyzing the budget, it was expected that given that the numbers were softer in the elections than had been predicted for the BJP, there would be a large amount of very populist measures, fair amount of appeasement, almost appeasement perhaps, or making sure everybody got something. We didn't see that.
No, but you should also again recognize, and again adding to this argument, that in his dedication to serve the country and serve the country to take it in leaps and bounds to reach 2047 as Viksit Bharat, there's no change in his approach. We have in the vote and account budget itself indicated the direction, indicated the caste, the four castes for whom we'll have to do things: the Garib, the Mahila, the Yuva and the Kisan. We've indicated that. We've also said 11 lakh crores plus will be spent on capital expenditure. We've also said Vishwakarma. We've also said PM Suryagar. So, when broad contours are already laid out in the vote on account budget, my July budget was largely deriving from that, subsuming that into the year-long budget, although this budget would effectively deal with the next 8 months from July. So, there has never been, before the election or after, any attempt at trying to assuage people, appease people, nothing.
Yes.
We are looking at taking India forward.
Well, we're totally clear about that, but are you in the process too tight on your fiscal, too tight on fiscal discipline, fiscal deficit? For example, if I can elucidate this, in the first 5 months of this financial year, you've had fantastic tax collections, and congratulations on you for that. But your spending is behind the target.
No, I don't think that is intended. Otherwise, you wouldn't have 11 lakh crores being given for capital expenditure. That's government spending, and spending on creating assets. That's not government spending on, revenue freebies and revenue expenditure. It's building assets, which has at least 2.48 as a multiplier for every rupee spent. That is where, in the last 5 years, we've constantly maintained increasing numbers in capital expenditure.
Ma'am,
but the expenditure being slightly lesser than ideal was because the first quarter was the quarter during which the election happened. Naturally.
So nothing should be read into it.
Nothing should be read into it. On the contrary, to meet that 11 lakh crores, we'll be pacing up now.
So why is Nirmala Sitharaman so tough with the middle class is a question I have been asked to ask you by all our viewers ahead of this interview, and I would like you to spend some time so that our audiences get the correct perspective. I'm not, of course, you are focusing on your Gyan scheme, no doubt about that. But Madam Finance Minister, when can the middle class, which is the powerhouse of the Indian economy also in a way, expect a break? Tax rates are high. Middle class pays more taxes than the corporates put together. Not so long ago, in 2010, the corporate tax collection used to be twice of the personal income tax. Now, the middle class has stood by, and the middle class is complying also very well, which is why your personal tax collections are surging up. Do you feel a little bit of a break would increase compliance perhaps, or encourage the middle class, or motivate them even more? So this is a question which has been on our minds, and maybe we'd like to understand your thinking.
Thank you for asking me this. Yes. And I also observe this voice about middle class. And I'm not saying, oh, I've done this and therefore I'm not doing anything more, but I want to lay the facts before you.
Please.
In order that there is ease of compliance, we came up with a faceless assessment so that people are not harassed or people don't get the feeling that too burdensome compliance is taking their time. I'm starting with the less important one, but important nevertheless. So we came up with a faceless and then extended it not just for assessment but also for appeals. Then we came up also with a second income tax regime, which is the new band of tax which is available, and within a year after introducing that, I've reduced the rates. I've brought up more income earning people into the reduced rates.
Yes.
So there is an attempt made to give something for the middle class in the July's budget, July 24 budget. Standard deduction was increased.
Yes.
Now, for nearly 3 years, people have been talking about it is the middle class which is in startups. I recognize that. I fully appreciate that. Why was angel tax removed? Completely removed.
That was a good move.
And that was keeping the middle class, which is doing this, entrepreneurial and also with innovation built into it, wanting to do things and showcase India and to perform for India. Angel tax has been removed so that private equity, which will want to support startups, will now feel comforted that they're not going to be questioned or troubled because one element of angel tax still remains. No element remains, it's been removed. Standard deduction, which was up to 50, has been raised to 75,000. As I said, rates have been changed. So there has been an attempt to do something for the middle class. Affordable housing, raising of these middle class run MSME units. They're also middle class. MSME units didn't even have term loan facility from the banks. They had working capital given to them. They didn't know how to buy their plant and machinery for small setup that they have. We have now given them collateral-free term loan giving them term loans for which they don't need to give any security. Government has backed them up. They can go. And again, after that and beyond that, if a promoter himself wants to give a personal guarantee and go to some extent in obtaining bigger loan, whatever be the size of the loan for that MSME, up to 100 crores, government is giving, along with the personal guarantee, a backstop arrangement with which he can obtain with confidence, and the banks will not hesitate to give him the loan. So we are coming up with a lot of measures for the MSMEs. Again, I would think MSMEs are also representative of the middle class.
They are, no doubt. So you're saying indirectly many steps are being taken which benefit the middle class?
Yes, I'm not saying that's the end of the story. At the same time, being a finance minister, I don't have the privy to say in the forthcoming budget, I will do this.
No, obviously I don't expect that. But may I just broadly ask you a follow-up to that?
Yes.
With the tax collections going up, which is an achievement of your government and your ministry, can the middle class expect some relief sometime in the future?
Every budget we are doing something. Only I can't now say, Arnab, yes, I give you my word. Please take it. I will do something for the middle class. Even in the next budget, I can't.
But why is it, Ms. Sitharaman, that this government we find that, and in the Modi government, that we don't find that direct relation between politics and decisions of the finance ministry? We, even before an election or after an election, the direction of the policies seems to be fairly unmoved. This is unusual.
By the opinions on the ground.
Yeah.
We take the inputs. We imagine two things. One on the middle class, particularly on income tax. The second, the need for skilling. Our youth who otherwise come out from universities, industry feels they are not ready for jobs. And therefore there is this hesitation. And those who are risking it and expanding their business still go ahead recruiting people, and they say, that they spend at least 8 months readying them for the jobs.
And I'm glad you raised that
Because
point.
of that, I have certainly come up with a package with 5 elements in it. For the first time job seeker, we are paying the salary for a whole year. And the EPFO, contribution of the employee and the employer will be given by the government. We are giving for every additional job, that's a second one. For every additional job recruitment that employers would do, we are also again paying the EPFO. And that they continue for at least 2 years so that they recruit and drop off people shouldn't happen. We've made that provision as well. Above all, in the top 500 companies, for people who have never been employed till now, we have given a place and said they will be interns. And for these interns, government will give them monthly 5,000 rupees.
Yes.
And in the first instance where they go to the place and assign themselves as an intern, one time 6,000 rupees is also given to them so that they adjust and settle, their travel costs, go reach the place and so on. So these are essentially because we heard from the industry and from the youth that it is for want of that skilling which is required before being recruited that we have provided that. So this distance that you're talking about, I'm a bit concerned about it because these inputs have come from the ground.
No, let me elaborate that further, ma'am. In terms of market estimates, if you look at the way we are performing with the 8.15% growth year on year, which we have done, and also the, all the estimates also, the forecasts of the World Bank, we have shielded ourselves from an unstable yen, from whatever is happening in America. We are very stable, there's no doubt about it. But unless your government is able to also match it with really sharply declining unemployment rates, that narrative which we began by talking about will remain against you. In all the global critical assessments that you find of the government, it would be that your unemployment figures are always juxtaposed against your GDP
I can
numbers.
understand
And
that.
what is your government's solution on that? What is your plan on that? How quickly can you deliver on that? Because the unemployment rate has risen quite sharply in the first month after you came back to power.
I don't want to argue on the unemployment numbers.
What's
On the
your
contrary, the
approach?
data which comes from us, from our labor ministry, shows that in certain areas it is coming down. In fact, employment opportunities have gone up. I've said this also
Yes.
once before. The data is available for
Sure.
people. There's more need to do more, and I grant that. Certainly we have. And that is why in this budget, you've had this 5 elements packaged together for employment and skilling. 1 crore people in 5 years are going to benefit from it. That's been designed and approved by the parliament. So we will be implementing that. You'll soon get to know how this internship is playing out.
Besides internship, do you believe that the unemployment figures are a matter of concern for you?
No, unemployment is an issue on which I have said for the first
Is there a
time.
roadblock that the government has on the issue of unemployment? Do you believe that with so much investment going on in manufacturing, which is commendable, it may take some time for that to actually reflect in
No, as I said that.
unemployment numbers?
It is an issue of skill gap. Interestingly, the CII today met me
Yes.
and gave me a report which they have looked at various countries and the levels of skill gap which is prevailing in most of these countries. And based on that, their expectation of an employee, the skill sets that they expect in an employee, and the jobs that are available are all mapped by the CII now. And I'm saying that within India, it is that kind of a mapping with which we have come up with this 5-element package for improving the employability of young people. Either you take them as new employee and we will guarantee some kind of money for it, or they are going through the internship, or the ITIs which prevail in all the states. We are going to invest to upgrade them, invest in their training instruments that they need, and bring in master trainers to come and that is with the state governments, because ITIs are with the state governments. We've got a scheme for that as well, so that people who come out of higher secondary are straight away sent to these ITIs, and from there they will be employable. So there's a lot of work which is yet to be done, but we've announced that, made provision for it. It has got the clearance from the
Is
Parliament.
there any political pressure on you in this term as Finance Minister? Is there more pressure on you in terms of the political impact of your policies?
Every budget has been a challenge. This budget wasn't any different.
No, more in terms of, are you under watch? Do you feel this opposition parties getting more aggressive? There are
No,
coalition
opposition.
partners who are
No, wait a
demanding their
minute.
pound of flesh.
No, I don't think it is working. It's a pre-electoral alliance. We've all been together during the election. They're all part of this NDA government. They have individually their problems, in the sense Bihar needs more development. Andhra, after being divided, also has issues. Now recently that Vijayawada flood has been
Yes.
mammoth. They've never seen such rains at one go.
Yes.
And Vijayawada is really devastated. So there are problems like that which are more, nature and climate related issues. But what I'm trying to say here is, and I would appeal to you, this narrative which the opposition tries to build based on their days of coalition governments don't work here.
But they say that you've also gone in disproportionate amount of money you've given to your allies, to the TDP and the JDU, huge infrastructure projects, money for development work. It's being
How would
described
you-
by, it's being described, I won't name the publication, just wrote an article, said it was like a blank check which was given to these states in the budget. Now that may be also part of the narrative building.
Yes.
Does it put you on the back foot?
No, it
Does
makes
it
me
put the
feel
Finance
sorry.
Minister of India on the back foot?
It doesn't. On the contrary, it makes me feel sorry that for governments run by Congress, where they looked the other way and allowed alliance partners to run amok, exploited the treasury and made good for themselves, did not do anything for the development of the country. Today they are accusing of this alliance doing that. Who defines proportionality? Please ask them to look at the budget and see how much is going disproportionately to any one state. And that is why even on that day when they first remarked in the parliament, I said, let me know, for all the states which have got ignored in the budget statements that you gave, did it imply that you didn't give them any money at all?
No, I take your point, but
I did say that
if I
to
can
them.
stray on that a little bit, because in my years of knowing you, you've been a very strong political communicator. So my next question may not appear to be finance ministry related, but in a sense, my question would be that there is those who are the narrative setters are saying the government has become cautious. Modi government is having to do U-turns, whether it was on the Waqf bill, whether it was on the capital gains tax, whether it was on the decision on lateral entries. That in all of these cases, the Modi government, in an unusual series of events, rolled back its own decisions.
And they think it's because of their charm.
No,
Excuse me.
no, they attempt, the narrative there is, and okay, so the attempt is that the government is on its toes, it is cautious, it's on the back foot, it's easy to push the government over, which was completely against the image of the
What
Modi
a
government in the
destructive,
past.
fanciful daydreaming.
What is your-
It's on its toes. It is possible to topple. What a destructive, I repeat, daydreaming. Government on its toes is always the quality with which Modi ji has run his government in Gujarat, and he runs it here. We are always kept on our toes. We need to attend to people. We need to do our jobs. We need to be literally performing with such alertness that the government is seen to be functioning, not a government unlike days where we have seen that it's almost like in a half state of coma, policy paralysis, never under Prime Minister Modi. So it's very well for them because they've just touched about, not even just about touched 100, they feel all spiked up.
Spiked up, yes.
I'm sorry. It doesn't help. You are actually spreading negativity in the country, and you want people to live in a kind of hopelessness, which was the case in 2013. Please learn from your follies. people want a positive working opposition. This time, Lok Sabha election, people voted for a government, and a government for the third time coming to power consecutively, as much as they voted an opposition which they want them to conduct themselves like a true constructive opposition. If that is being mistaken as a mandate to spread negativity, they are disserving this country. And this is a serious allegation I level at them.
You've seen the comments of Rahul Gandhi in the US where he's praised China and run down India's manufacturing. Some of the facts were actually not were false as well.
Yes, they
not
could
just
be corroborated.
not just exaggerations. Given the trend in the Chinese economy, what do you feel the impact of that, if any, is on the way India is perceived globally?
Indian voters are going to be disillusioned by Congress party's role as an opposition party. They earlier saw them completely being negatived. They earlier saw them being destructive in the parliament. They gave them a little more votes, more number of seats, just to see them work constructively in the House, have meaningful debates. Certainly, whether in power or outside, Indian people don't want any leader from India to go outside of the country and talk in disparaging note about India itself and to decry your own country. I'm not playing up on this, but
Yes.
I would want to say this. I was astonished to see a Pakistan news channel,
Yes.
which is now all over the social media, where two of them who are people who are in the know of the South Asian politics and Indians politics
Yes.
and so on. They're astonished, and they said, what kind of a leader would he be that he goes outside and criticizes his own country, whereas he should be doing that in the parliament. So countries are astonished at this conduct of this kind of a disruptive and somebody who can criticize his own country outside. That's not responsible opposition. That's not the kind of leader Indian public want.
Ma'am, also this time in budget when he was making his speech, I saw a moment when you were holding your head in your hands when the reference was made to how many of your secretaries and senior bureaucrats were from which caste.
Yes.
If I may ask you, what impact did that have on the finance ministry, or how would you view that kind of a
It
comment
was
when you reduce
very
everything
demeaning.
to caste?
Yes, and it was very demeaning because whether you like it or not, every institution has its own certain customary practices. This halwa ceremony is one such, because they get locked up in the cellar for 9 days, 8 nights. And that is the time when they cannot have their phone, their mobiles, or any contact with their families. People go in there
Yes.
and print the budget and send it out. Nowadays, printing numbers have come down because most are digital. And this ceremony, like the way in most of our houses, we have something given, meeta, before we start some auspicious thing. That's a ceremony. And when he tried to mock that and reduce that to how many of which caste was there, I said, what? And in my dismay, I kept my hand
We saw that.
because I didn't know how to reply to that.
Yes.
So I have a feeling, consciously using caste as a card, every institution of India is being derided by the leader of the opposition. And for all that, as though he is above caste. If he was
Yes.
above caste, why would his team call him a Janeyudhari Brahman
Yes.
of a particular gotra?
Yes.
And you then go about talking about these sort of things. So you want to claim the benefit of your caste for some time, and suddenly when you want to disturb the calm anywhere, you want to say, no, I'm sorry, how many? Didn't he also ask how many women are there how many caste-based people are there?
In the Miss India.
Miss India.
Yes, he did that.
I mean, can there be anything much more ludicrous than that? He's making a mockery of this whole thing.
One specific question, a broad question to wrap up. The specific question is that on the issue of petrol price cuts, I know we may be asking for too much given the fact that we've been stable compared to the global scenario, but India is set to lead the world in terms of oil demand in 2024, and global oil prices are also at their lowest, around $70 per barrel. So, Madam Finance Minister, is there a possibility to further bring the petrol prices down? There have been a few comments that should this be the trend, then it can go down further. How do you view this?
Look, you can always say global prices have come down, reduce my price.
Yes.
And I'm sure...
It's a direct correlation there.
No, that's fine. I'm sure every time there's been an opportunity, Prime Minister has reduced. You would recall 2 times when he had reduced it, once in November 22, the next time in 23 June or something like that. And in response to it, many state governments also equally reduced. Many others did not. So I'm not engaging in any whataboutery. Very clearly, Prime Minister Modi will take a call, and whenever he deems fit, he will take a call on that. But equally, with the same fervor, I'm not sure if media is following it up with states which gave flimsy promises, which did not fulfill them, and gave freebies which they couldn't sustain, and ended up increasing the cost of price of petrol, diesel, Himachal, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, which naam ke vaste brought it down by 1 rupee or 2 rupees, whilst the manifesto itself said we'll reduce it by 7 rupees and 5 rupees. It doesn't happen in many states.
No cut there.
No cut there, not once, not twice, we did it 2 times. And I'm not saying we won't do it.
Yes.
It is up to the Petroleum and Natural Gas Ministry and also to the Prime Minister to see when best they want to do it at all.
True. One question which I wanted to ask you in the middle of the election. This North-South divide was always built up. South earns the money, North isn't contributing enough. In a report I saw today of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, appears to me the problem is parts of East versus West, because Jharkhand, Bihar and Bengal are areas of serious concern in terms of flagging growth. In fact, the average wage in Bihar would be 1/3 of the national average. Do you also consider this? First, therefore, if you can answer this in 2 parts, ma'am. One, this attempt to rile up the South against the North, which was a political move. And second, the degrowth, or rather I would say very, very compromised growth of these 3 states, which will bring down the national average.
West Bengal, just like that I'm adding.
Yeah, Bengal, Bihar and Jharkhand.
24% of GDP of India in 1947 came from Bengal.
Yes.
Today, it is not even 3%. So, degrowth shows up in so many different ways.
Yes.
Degrowth, again, shows up in different ways that your workforce is moving elsewhere.
Yes.
Now, deriving from that, I'll also say this. Development. I want every state to be developed. And there is an argument when few states from the South say, we have shown a good, positive, progressive change, we are not being rewarded. There may be an element of truth in it, but it is not to sort of say somebody is denying them what they should get. But their productivity is also contributed by this workforce which is moving from there to some of the states. I've heard the last month, not just anecdotal, newspapers reporting that Tirupur, which is a big Hosieria textile center, saying we don't have workers. And the workers are coming from Orissa, Jharkhand and Bihar. Now, does that contribute to your state's contribution to the GDP? So is it exclusively of Andhra's, exclusively
Possibly
of
not,
Telangana, exclusively of Tamil Nadu, exclusively of Karnataka? No. Now the movements of factors of production, labor and capital particularly, are from everywhere else. Now if a Tata or a Adani go and invest in Telangana or in Tamil Nadu, the capital is whose? Whose capital is it? It is India's capital. The workforce coming from Jharkhand or Orissa is a factor of production. Whose factor of production is that? So when you're calculating your GSDP, how much of a line can you draw saying it's ours, not theirs? So we are getting into slightly difficult territory. Whilst I agree some of the development indicators, human development indicators may be better, far better also. These are issues which have to be represented in the Finance Commission. For them to take a call, as much as there's been this tradition to incentivize backwardness, there should be incentive also for performance. And that's what the Finance
That's
Commission
very,
should.
very well put. You mentioned Adani there. So how do you view this Adani-Ambani charge of the
No, I
Congress?
purposely said it.
How do you view
Hasn't
this
Telangana got
Adani-Ambani
Adani?
charge all the time of the...
No, but I won't highlight this.
Yes.
Hasn't Telangana got some investment from Adani?
Yes,
Hasn't Kerala got an investment from Adani? Now, then it is only BJP which is accused of favoring Ambani and Adani. You've got investments from them as well. So with what moral authority are you accusing us of Ambani and Adani? Always. Every one of these big industries have investments in each of these states.
How did you view, towards the fag end of Parliament session, Rahul Gandhi putting out a video saying stock markets will crash tomorrow because of a Hindenburg report which referred to Madhavi Buch? How did you view that?
Well, certainly there's an element of suspicion that the opposition is playing into, this kind of a disruptive politics, almost desiring hook or crook. I will have to win, and Modi should be removed. For that, I'll do everything, and that is what is the game played out.
But the markets didn't respond.
No, markets did not respond. Citizens also did not respond. Otherwise, why would Modi be forming the government the third time? I want that not forgotten. It's all right, you can say, I'm pepped up because I've got 100 now to sit in the opposition. But to sit in the opposition, it is Prime Minister who's been given the blessing to form the government. Why are we not understanding this whilst this false narrative is thrown at us every now and then? We should just reject it. You're talking about constitution. You're talking about rights of people. You're the ones who are speaking, going out of the country about reservations to be removed. Yes. Hasn't he made a comment there?
He did.
And you went around holding a constitution in your hand, copy of the constitution in your hand. How hypocritical can this be? And we should call this out.
Yes. Last question this time. And I am enjoying this interview because we don't get to talk nowadays since you became finance minister. You've been through the greatest of trials during COVID. Last time we spoke about it. You could be going in for one of your greatest trials, I believe, given the global economic weather. Last question is, and many people will watch this very carefully, especially people from the financial world in Mumbai. Given the rocky period that the world is inevitably heading towards, we are seen to be a center of calm. Are we doing enough to prepare and to be ahead? And how do you view this recession or close recession situation in large parts of the Western world impacting India?
As a result of which our exports are suffering.
Yes.
We need to give such support to the exporters so that they find newer markets. Demand is falling in Europe.
Yes.
And our traditional markets have been in that area. So we need to have FTAs. The Commerce Minister is actively engaging in getting FTAs done.
Yes.
So there is an overall understanding that greater support has to be given to our entrepreneurs and to make sure that India's own reliance on some critical equipments will have to be brought down. That's why you will remember, again, middle class. We brought down the customs duty for gold. How does it matter? Gold jewelry making is a big part of the exports.
Yes.
You need small workers sit and work in it. Middle class workers benefit from working in that sector. Critical minerals, because we need to have many of the components that we produce. Solar panels, you need hydrogen, and for which you need lithium. Many of these, exemption has been offered in customs duty. That's also this budget. That's also going to benefit the middle class because you're going to get jobs out of that. So critical minerals we're bringing down. As I said, startups have benefited because we've removed angel tax. And life-saving cancer drugs have been given exemption in the customs area. And 3 of them were named. They were very critical and very expensive drugs. Now, similar is the proposal which went to the GST Council. Even there we have negotiated so that they can also bring it down. So every time when we are looking at middle class, there are so many different ways in which we are facilitating. What are Jan Aushadhi Kendras, Arnab? Medicines which are necessary for every day. You know, you may have a patient of diabetes at home, you may have a blood pressure patient, or you may have a, life-threatening disease. For all this, the medicines which are sold as a generic drug in a Jan Aushadhi Kendra is 60% minimum lesser than the branded ones. By spreading the Jan Aushadhi Kendras all over the country, we've given the middle class an option to save on their medical expenses. Isn't that a step also?
No, it is.
For medical, look at the 5 lakh which we've given for 70 years and above.
But
Won't
my
that
question
help?
was in the context of the global weather.
No, I'm coming to that. So the point that I said, global, dependence on China for some critical elements. We wanted that to be brought down. That's why customs duties have been brought down. That point about middle class, one last point, 70 years and above, all senior citizens have been given the 5 lakh medical insurance. That is your Ayushman Bharat.
Yes.
So, in order to make India less reliant on countries outside for critical components, which are important for our production, manufacturing, self-reliance, make in India, we have removed customs duties. So we want all those raw materials to come so that our people can produce. And by manufacturing more, you're going to spread the welfare also, in the sense you're able to produce more, earn more, export more. We have to support our manufacturers.
Well, it's quite clear listening to you, and I'd like to tell all our viewers listening to the Finance Minister, one gets a clear sense that there is an absolute element of continuity. One doesn't find any change from, say, 6 months back. And I think we are moving in the right direction. I thank you for your candor, and we miss you on our political debates, Nirmala Sitharaman, and I wish you luck as you steer India in these important times. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnab.
Thank you. Thank you. And viewers, I'm following that up in a few minutes on our top debate at 9 o'clock on where we are placed 100 days into the Modi government. The areas where they can do better, but has the opposition really matched up? Or has it sort of lost its groove in the last 100 days? When I'm back, the political debate.
Time for a quick breather. Arnab will be right back with the debate.